So yeah. Okay, so later on we can edit that. So we are starting, it's 1:27 and we can start at 1:30.
Exactly. Yes. Now I'll make you the host.
Okay, take your time.
Putta, thank you. Like now they are the tech-savvy generation. They just say there are other ways of doing it. Thank you, son, but we already did. Thank you, Kasun. Dr. Jayatunga, now it's 1:30. Like, shall we start then? Like, meanwhile, the students will come? Or
Yeah.
wait 2-3 minutes?
Yeah, we can start. I mean, we can just do the brief introduction.
Yes.
And yeah, are we expecting students?
Yeah, we are
Yeah,
expecting.
so far we have 102.
With my brief welcome, we can begin. Like, no. What is
Yeah, sure, ma'am. You may. I hope everybody can hear us.
Students?
Yes, sir.
Right. So good evening, good afternoon once again, everybody. So my task is here. I take only few minutes to welcome our guest, Dr. Ruwan Jayatunga, also to briefly introduce him to you. Dr. Ruwan Jayatunga, our resource person here today, has done his basic degrees in basic degree, Doctor of Medicine in National University of Ukraine and BA in Psychology in York University, Canada. And he has done his PhD in Psychotherapy in Fluid University, Vienna, Austria. So he has practiced as a doctor in local hospitals for over 12 years. And now he works in York Region Health Services in Canada, and his service in the medical field abroad also is over 12 years. More than his prestigious educational background, I actually mentioned a few qualifications of him to save time. So more than his education, what inspires me of him more is actually his vast knowledge and experience in diverse fields, and his knowledge about the world. So he has gained it, obviously, by living in different social, cultural contexts, by traveling the world extensively, like he just mentioned now, and also by diligently engaging himself with people, different personalities. So I do appreciate the attitude he has, or let's say the right choice he made to share that knowledge with us or others through his wonderful publications and say presentations like this, or informal talks, his blog entries, or whatever other social platforms in the most humble, creative, cheerful, and effective manner. Gaining knowledge is the first step to wisdom. Sharing it is the first step to humanity. So I repeat that, students. Gaining knowledge is the first step to wisdom. Sharing it is the first step to humanity. So thank you very much for having the good heart to share a bit of wisdom with us, these young ladies and gentlemen. So welcome you, Dr. Ruwan Jayatunga, to our session on literature and psychology. I welcome you on behalf of Vaibhav University of Sri Lanka, Faculty of Technology, as well as Department of English Language Teaching. Thank you very much. Over to you then.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, I'll share my screen. This is the hardest task. So everybody can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me today. And so my presentation is on literature and psychology. Firstly, I would like to thank Madam Sajibani Fernando for organizing this event. And it's a privilege to be here. And I would like to add a few more things for my bio. I studied at Nalanda College. Then I went to Ukraine to study medicine at Vinnytsia National Medical University. Then I came back and I was posted to very rural areas, and I worked as a MOH in Winnipeg and mainly in the psychiatry field. So I was a SHO Nobs, MO psychiatrist, etc. And one time I was working for the Sri Lanka Army. In 2009, I went to Canada and I went to York University, completed my psychology degree. Then I I went to several other institutions in Canada and in the United States, and wanted to complete my PhD at Sigmund Freud University. So halfway, I had to submit my thesis in German. So there was a little problem. And then I was transferred to Selnius University in Italy. And last month, I completed that, thank God. So, so I feel that I'm fully fledged now. So I like to conduct my presentation. So this is literature and psychology. This presentation is based on the book that I have written some years ago. It's titled Between Literature and Psychology, published by Godage International Publishers. And we know that literature and psychology, it has an intricate connection. And often we ask these creative people have sort of disturbed minds, like beautiful minds. If you could remember John Nash, The Beautiful Mind, because with that they are very gifted abilities. Sometimes they are troubled by their emotions. So when it overwhelms, they come with a lot of like creative outputs. So these the literature and psychology go hand in hand. And these people sometimes have internal mental conflicts, and so they are present their inner thoughts via their writings. So let us look into world literature and psychology. So first, I would like to start with Homer. So Homer was an ancient Hellenic poet. His Iliad and Odyssey narrate human actions, feelings, and internal mind. So Homer's great epic Iliad narrates combat stress, combat trauma, and human suffering. If you could remember Trojan women, it's about war widows. So he elegantly wrote about human suffering, and he knew the inner mind. So it's so amazing that a man lived several centuries ago, and he could analyze human mind into very intricate details. For instance, he describes about the war hero Achilles. Achilles was devastated when he heard the death of his best friend, his partner Patroclus. So he goes into rage. So there you find a survival guilt in Achilles. Even though he was alive, he acts like a dead man. And there are reasons to believe that Achilles was affected by combat trauma, probably post-traumatic stress disorder, aka PTSD. So here Homer narrates about post-traumatic stress symptomatology through Achilles. So Italian poet Dante suffered from epilepsy, and he experienced hallucinations. And his Divine Comedy was a masterpiece. And some people say that there are some anti-Islam and homophobic elements are there, but we have to consider that his Divine Comedy according to that era, in that historical context. So this is Cervantes. He's a Spanish author. He was a crusader. He participated in the Crusades, and one time he was a POW. So he returned to Spain as a very tired soldier, and obviously he suffered from battle stress and experienced vivid hallucinations. So he started writing about his inner mind. The result was this, Don Quixote. It's a very, very famous classic. And I think in 1960s, this book was translated into Sinhala. I don't remember the author, the translator. So this book narrates about an aristocrat, and he's going to save the world. But anyhow, there is a lot of humor, and also there is inner tragedy associated with Don Quixote. And sometimes he deviates. He dissociates. And sometimes he's attacking windmills, thinking that, assuming that these windmills are enemy troops. So everybody we know about William Shakespeare. He was a renowned English poet and a playwright. So his Macbeth, what a masterpiece! Because in Macbeth he describes the post-traumatic symptoms, especially in Lady Macbeth. So Lady Macbeth, she was affected by guilt and trauma. So she has compulsive hand washing. It's a form of OCD, and having nightmares, intrusive thoughts, and sleepwalking. So many centuries ago, Shakespeare, he was writing about a person who was impacted by psychological trauma. And Othello and pathological jealousy, because now there's a nosology. It's in the DSM, it's pathological jealousy, which is a delusional, which comes under delusional disorders. So, out of suspicion, Othello kills his wife, Desdemona. So it's a tragedy. it's actually, it was a conspiracy. It was conspired by a person named Iago. So there's a lot of human interaction, a lot of human thought, and a lot of drama involved there. So very vividly, Shakespeare writes about this Othello's inner mind, Desdemona's innocent character, and Iago's conspiracies and his dirty mind. So Hamlet is exceptional because Sigmund Freud often used Hamlet in his writing. This character was unique. Hamlet was indecisive, and he had emotional struggles, melancholy, and unresolved mental conflicts towards his mother. So Freud identified these mental conflicts as elements of Oedipus complex. And you can find Hamlet's, the name Hamlet in Freudian writings. So most probably William Shakespeare was a medieval psychoanalyst. Even though he didn't use the title, he was able to see human psyche through a different lens. And he was not a very educated man. He has not traveled much, but there are a lot of interesting facts are coming. Sometimes people say that Shakespeare, he was doing some plagiarism, but he was genius. He was genius indeed, and he was self-taught man. So we cannot debate about his education. So now we move to Russian literature. So Nikolai Gogol, he wrote a number of short stories, novels, and he wrote a short story called Diary of a Madman. There he gives a very good illustration about a man suffering from schizophrenia who is having auditory hallucinations, visual hallucinations, and sort of very deviant mind, incoherent mind. So probably Nikolai Gogol, he knew, somehow he had an association with schizophrenic symptoms. Ironically, in the latter stage of his life, he suffered from psychosis. So probably he suffered from schizophrenia. And several years ago, I wrote a research paper with one Lebanese psychiatrist. I shared the link. You can see that paper. So Fyodor Dostoevsky was a compulsive gambler, and he suffered from psychogenic epilepsy. There's a difference between psychogenic epilepsy and real epilepsy. In real epilepsy, there's an organic cause. It could be some brain trauma, some drastic change in brain chemistry. And if you do electroencephalogram, EEG, you can find changes in epilepsy. But in psychogenic epilepsy, it manifests due to extreme stress, and there are no EEG changes. So Fyodor Dostoevsky had these psychogenic epilepsies because he was once arrested and had to undergo mock execution. So that dread, that fright affected his entire life. So ever since, he was getting psychogenic epilepsies when he was emotionally overwhelmed. He became a compulsive gambler, and he was writing about the human values, the moral values. In the meantime, there was a beast inside him. Even Fyodor Dostoevsky admits the dark side of his character. So he writes this amazing story, The Brothers Karamazov. In Brothers Karamazov, he presents numerous characters such as Mitya. Mitya is a sort of he's an alcoholic. He fights. He's a very violent man. He's the eldest son. Then the second son, Ivan, he's more rational. And Alosha is very, very gentle, the third son, and he's very lovable. He's full of passion. He's full of love. And their father, the greedy landowner, he has no regard for the children. He has no moral values, and what he needs is money and earthly pleasures. And also, Dostoevsky write about Father Zosima. It's a very, very moral character. It's a very spiritual character. So he writes about the beast and the esteemed human, like how it changes, how these dynamics move. And he analyzes these characters and their internal psychological conflicts exceptionally. So in Crime and Punishment, probably you guys have read this book. It's a very, very prominent novel. So Dostoevsky presents the inner mind of Raskolnikov. He's tormenting guilt after killing the old women, because he kills 2 old women. Then because first he thought that this Mysore woman, she was the main reason for this degradation, and he wanted to get rid of her, and he wanted to do a service to the society by killing this woman. But after killing this woman, he realizes that, I mean, nothing changes. It's like either like a bloodthirst revolution. You kill millions of people, but at the end result, nothing changes. You still have the human misery. So he was very upset about that. He was devastated about that. And he had the guilt and remorse. Out of guilt and remorse, he goes to the authorities and he confesses. So that's a story of Crime and Punishment. In these 2 books, actually Dostoevsky write about the human mind, especially when you think about Brothers Karamazov. The eldest son, Mitya, is like the human id. I want it now. That sort of savage instinct. So ego is like Ivan. He's rational, but he could be nasty at times, but yet he's rational. That's Ivan. Then Alosha is like super ego. He's very kind. He's very loving. He has a lot of empathy. So these 3 characters, Dostoevsky brings to the table. This is way before Freud wrote about these the parts of human personality, ego and superego. I think Freud was very fascinated reading Fyodor Dostoevsky and Friedrich Nietzsche. But later on, he denied that the fact that he read Nietzsche, because he didn't want to admit that he copied some of the concepts from Nietzsche. So Leo Tolstoy, he lost his parents at a young age, and he served as a military officer in Sevastopol, where he was exposed to gruesome battle events. He was a gambler too, and also he was trapped in a very unhappy marriage. So these events changed his psyche, and he suffered from anxiety and depression. After once he was discharged from the army, he went to buy a piece of land. So one night he woke up with a mortal fear. He had a phobic anxiety reaction. So that was a game changer. That was a wake-up call for Tolstoy. So from that moment, he started looking into spiritual aspect of his life. So in his autobiography, Leo Tolstoy narrates about these events. So Leo Tolstoy was well-traveled and well-read person, and he had a lot of compassion. In the meantime, there was a miser inside him, because he was a landowner, and he didn't want to share his wealth with the poor completely. So there were certain paradoxes in his life. So his War and Peace, probably the best novel, one of the best novels ever written in human history. So In War and Peace, he presents two different characters. First, Andrei Balkonsky, a military officer. He's looking for glory, disregarding his family life. He has a beautiful wife, and she was pregnant. She was about to give birth to a child. Despite all that, Andrei dumps her, and Andrei goes to the battlefield with General Kutuzov to fight against Napoleon. So he was brave, he was ambitious, yet cynical. So Andrei Balkonsky was wounded in the battle, and there he experiences NDE, near-death experience. So earlier he wanted to be somebody like Napoleon, and he wanted to be somebody like General Kutuzov. But after encountering that near-death experience, he becomes very cynical. He realizes there is no value in life. I mean, there's no glory. There's no glory in war. There's no glory in death. And he becomes more and more cynical. And so the second character, Pierre Bestuhoff, he was an illegitimate son of a famous count. He grew up with humiliation and low self-esteem. He was an outcast. So Pierre was an outcast. So after, even though he came to Moscow, he was not invited to the big functions. But based on his father's request, he was made a count. So that was a drastic change in Pierre's life, and his lifestyle changes dramatically. Now he has money and glory, but he feels there's some emptiness inside him. So he finds a lack of meaning, troubles him. So first, he went in seeking numerous doctrines because he was unhappy with his unfaithful wife. So Pierre, first he wants to become a Freemason. So after meeting with these members of the Freemason, he realizes that there's nothing new because they couldn't offer much to him. Then the second task, he wants to kill the beast. He wants to kill Napoleon. He thinks that Napoleon was the Antichrist. So then he goes to Moscow to kill Napoleon, and he becomes a POW. Then he witnesses gruesome battle events, and he sees how the poor peasants were forcefully taken to the battlefield, and they were allowed to die under this French fire. And more and more, he understands human misery, and that transforms him. So the War and Peace, there are numerous characters. I would say more than 60 or 70 characters, and each character plays a different role. And Tolstoy presents these characters in a very, very dramatic way. So probably you must have heard of Oscar Wilde and his words. So The Picture of Dorian Gray is a classic. So in this book, in this novel, he elucidates homoeroticism, narcissistic attitudes, and self-destruction. Actually, Oscar Wilde was a bohemian. He was married and he was having 2 children, yet he was having a secret affair with a young man named Boyce Douglas. During the Victorian era, it was a crime. Homosexuality was a crime, and he was imprisoned. So we can see certain similarities between the Dorian Gray's life and Oscar Wilde's life. Eventually, Oscar Wilde had to flee the London Society, and he went to France, and where he died. So we see certain similarities, certain tragedies, certain life turmoils in these two characters. So Edgar Allan Poe, one of the best American storytellers, and if you could remember Telltale Heart, and there are very, very elegant poems written by Edgar Allan Poe, but he was an alcoholic. He was drinking heavily, and also he had opioid addiction. In the latter stages, he went into certain psychotic behavior, probably triggered by his alcohol usage. Probably he was suffering from alcohol-induced psychosis, and it led to a violent death. So he died as a homeless, poor man. He was a very creative person, but during his time, he was disregarded. After his death, he received glory like Van Gogh. So Virginia Woolf, she was the wife of Leonard Woolf, who served in Ceylon. So she had a very tormenting life. She endured a lot of psychotrauma. She was sexually abused as a child, and she had very unstable emotions. She couldn't stand stress. For each stressful life situations, she had very tormented reactions, and probably she suffered from bipolar affective disorder. And Virginia Woolf, she committed suicide. So same thing goes to Ernest Hemingway. He was an American author. He went to Spanish Civil War as a volunteer, and he firsthand he witnessed the gruesome realities of the battle. If you could remember the famous painting, The Torture of Guernica. So this Luftwaffe bombing in that Spanish village, that caused a lot of death and destruction. So Ernest Hemingway firsthand, he witnessed these gruesome battle events, and that changed his personality. He became anti-war guy. Because he was against war, and then he came back to the States, and they were the lost generation. They called themselves the lost generation, and he went to Paris, and he was drinking heavily there. So chronic alcoholism, a lot of life stresses. Then he went to Cuba. Then the US government was behind him. They thought that he was supporting the rebels there. And they put a lot of pressure on Ernest Hemingway. So he couldn't bear these lot of pressures, and that affected his sanity. And eventually he shot himself. Ernest Hemingway killed himself. So his Old Man and the Sea, it's a struggle between nature and the human spirit. And Farewell to Arms, indeed, it's an anti-war novel. It's a story about one ambulance driver and a very beautiful nurse. They fell in love, and they wanted to leave the battlefield, and they fled to Switzerland, but they couldn't live happily ever after, because she gave a birth to a child. During that childbirth, she died. So it's a very, very devastating event in Hemingway's life. So I think everybody had heard of Franz Kafka. He was a functional depressive individual. His short story Metamorphosis describes the imperfection of the body. So in this short story, he says that Gregor Samsa turns into an insect. So many speculate this transformation implies anti-Semitism that he experienced in his society. Or probably Gregor Samsa was an LGBT individual. He was a closet homosexual who couldn't come out of and face society. So this metamorphosis is a very, very thrilling psychological short story, and it has many, many narratives. So Franz Kafka, actually out of depression, he wanted to destroy his work. He didn't want to publish. So he gave it to one of his friends and asked him to destroy his writings. But after Kafka's death, his friend didn't destroy that. Instead of destroying it, he published it. So then the world came to know about Kafka. So this metamorphosis probably, there are a lot of interpretations. Kafka was he had a Jewish background. During that time, there was a lot of anti-Semitism there, and two of his sisters were taken to the concentration camps. He escaped the concentration camp because he died prematurely. So these metamorphoses, probably Kafka was writing about this, his Jewish inheritance and how society viewed him, because all of a sudden, one sunny day, a man turns into an insect. So there are hundreds of interpretations. Some people say that it's about the hidden homosexual tendencies that he wanted to come out with, etc. So now we move into Sri Lankan literature and its psychological roots. So this is W.A. Silva. And ironically, he wrote a short story, I think in 1950s, about a World War II soldier who suffered from shell shock. So perhaps this very idea inspired Dharmasena Pathiraja to create his film Soldadu Unne Hai. So these were the first attempts to describe post-traumatic stress disorder and war trauma in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka suffered a 30-year war, and it generated a large number of combatants, paramilitary and civilians with post-traumatic disorder. And these people, they had certain instinct. Maybe they had some gut feeling where we were heading. So especially this Dharmasena Pathiraja. So he wrote about this. I don't know how he got this intuition. So Martin Wickramasinghe, I think Viragya is one of the best psychological novels, and it should go to the international arena. I don't know. I think it was translated, but there is sort of less response to this book from the international community. So Aravinda is a specific character, like he was inactive. He was he a failure? That's what I was always asking, because he renounces earthly pleasures, and he's not competitive. So indeed, he suffers from melancholia and lethargy, and so in this novel, Martin Wickramasinghe, I think he wrote this novel in 1940s or 1950s. There he discusses about this living together concept, because Aravinda's girlfriend says that if we can't get married, why don't we go and live separately? We can live together. So this very idea, it's a very, very sort of revolutionary idea at that time to come with such ideas to the public table. So even that, Aravinda didn't want to do that. So at that point, he loses his girlfriend. Then he goes into seclusion. So after many years, but still he repressed his biological urges. He was a man, and he had this biological urge, but yet he had to repress because of the society, because of the cultural reasons. Yet then his servant's daughter Bati, when she was growing up, he developed certain interest towards her, but that denial from Bati's side sort of again it repressed, like he didn't want to show. Then it turned into sort of a paternal love. So here Martin Wickramasinghe very elegantly writes about this man's inner thoughts. It's about how it transforms. It's all these dynamics. So we have to ask this question: who was Aravinda? Was he somebody like Oblomov? Or there are a number of characters you can relate with Aravinda's character. And sometimes we tend to think that he was a failure because with mundane parameters, yes, he was a failure. But what are the parameters for success? So we don't know whether he had inner happiness, maybe he was content, or whether he died as a depressed, sad man, or was he a moral masochist? He derived certain satisfaction with the negativity he endured during his lifetime. So these are the questions we have to ask, and we have to decide for ourselves. So G.B. Senanayake, indeed, he suffered from depression. And when I mentioned this, a lot of his readers, they were sort of criticizing and blasting me, but it was nothing personal, because I read G.B. Senanayake's novels, his poems, his short stories, and also his autobiography. So there are, you can find a lot of DSM symptomatology that he's describing, because he had poor self-care, and he was really feeling sorry for himself. And two of his siblings, including his father, I think they committed suicide. So there were immense trauma. There was childhood trauma in his life. So there are enough evidence to believe that G.B. Senanayake suffered from chronic depression. There's no offense, there's no insult. He was a brilliant writer. And after Martin Wickramasinghe, we can say G.B. was the best. And G.B., he could go into the inner mind and inner thoughts. And but yet we can see some melancholia in his writings. So this my article is in Sinhala. So there I tried to ask certain questions whether G.B. Senanayake suffered from depression. According to my understanding, yes, he suffered from depression. But sometimes depressive people, they are more creative, because when people either they have to go into depression or they have to go into elation. So I'm not telling that all the creative people are sort of mentally deranged. Please don't get that message, because I myself a writer. So I write books, I write novels, I write short stories, and I'm not perfect either. So here what I'm telling you is sometimes when you experience certain negativity, in order to overcome that, you tend to write something, because it comes as a catharsis. You want to express yourself. You want to present something, because you're not writing for your readers. You are writing for yourself, because first you want to satisfy yourself by your writing and your story. So probably in G.B.'s writings, we find this. And one prominent Sinhala author, I can't mention his name, it's unethical, but he told me that actually he's the one who gave me this clue in G.B.'s in short stories and the other novels. what happens eventually, the main character dies. Either he commits suicide or he meets with some unusual death. So death instinct was very powerful in GB. So so we can find a lot of authors like GB with their genius ability, with their this immense creativity. Still their inner mind was experiencing certain melancholia. Even Dostoevsky had this negativity, these depressive feelings. Leo Tolstoy had that. Edgar Allan Poe had. So it's sometimes it comes with certain mental condition, because end of the day, no one is perfect. And these are the two famous novels. Probably you guys have read this. I read this book as a while I was in maybe grade 11 or 12. So this Golu Hadawata, the Karunasena Jayarath was an exceptional writer, because some thought that he was a sort of lousy writer. He's writing some these love stories which has no depth, but we were wrong. The critics were wrong, because Karunasena Jayalath, if you read Golu Hadawata, the way he presents this the character Sugat. So he was an orphan, failed in love and then turned into an alcoholic. So if you read this book, he describes the entire this specific, vivid, intricate dynamics of addiction. Because my second specialty is addiction medicine. I treat a lot of people with severe drug addiction and severe alcohol addiction, and how the addict's mind work, how this addiction memory is formed, how what is the connection between psychological trauma and addiction, what is the connection between childhood trauma and addiction. So everything Karunasena Jayarath he puts into this book. If you if you read this book once again, and you will find a lot of clues there. So I was amazed. I was amazed at the way he was writing this book, and the transformation from innocence to experience, innocence to the addiction, how this person was transformed. It's a form of metamorphosis. Sugat, the innocent schoolboy, an orphan, he was living with his elder brother. So gradually turned into an alcoholic. So in this book, he writes, I think there are several sequences, the part 1, part 2. So Golu Hadawata was an exception. I think we had to reread this book. We had to deconstruct this book, and we had to reintroduce this book. It's not a sort of a very shallow love story. There's a big meaning in this book. So secondly, Haturu Hitak, in this book, he presents a character named Padmini, who is very vindictive, who is very resentful. So she wanted to, I think this is a part 2 of Gehen Ulamai. So, so if you remember the Nimal DRO, and he dumped his girlfriend, and then her best friend wanted to marry Nimal. So she marries the Padmini. Padmini marries Nimal with an intention, because she wants to take revenge. So Padmini, she was sexually molested as a child, and she was very vindictive. She was seductive, and you can see lack of remorse, lack of responsibility, and she has narcissistic elements there. So most probably this character Padmini suffers from, today we have identified this symptom. It's called rape trauma syndrome, especially with females following sexual trauma. Either they go into sort of depressive episode or post-traumatic episode, or sometimes these RTS, Rape Trauma Syndrome. That's also very, very sort of negative coping mechanism. So here, Karunasena Jayalath vividly writes about a female character, and he writes about these psychotrauma dynamics. So that's how we have to understand this novel. So I think the critics in 1960s and 70s, they were wrong because they misinterpreted Karunasena Jayalath, because Karunasena Jayalath, he actually, the way he presented, he simplified, he used very simple words and very simple human emotions to explain very deeper ideas. So this is my favorite novelist, Simon Navagathegama. I think you should read Sansararanye Dadayakkara. This is the first psychoanalytical novel, if I'm not mistaken. And this book has a psychoanalytical notion with the Mahayana concepts. So you can find great deal of psychoanalytic symbols in this novel. For instance, the monk, the masked deer, the hunter. So this book has various interpretations. So so when you say monk, it's an internal manifestation. The hunter also, it's an image, it's a manifestation in your inner mind. So everything, so probably this is a delusion, probably this is an illusion. So we don't know what's real and what's an illusion. So that's how it deviates from here and there. It goes back and forth. So this is a very, very powerful psychoanalytic novel. And Simon actually, he grew up in Navagathegama, very backward village, and had to face a lot of hardships, but he was a self-taught man. And eventually he came up with these ideas. Probably he must have read Freud and also the Buddhistic ideas, and also Mahayana concepts, and even Tantric, because the Tantric Buddhists, the Tantric monks, before Freud, before Ebing, or before D.H. Lawrence, they discuss about sexuality. So before the Western world, these monks, they discuss about sexuality and its psychological effects. So most probably Simon had read this Tantric and Mahayana Buddhism. So then come to the Battalangunduwa, written by my friend Manjula Vedivardhana. This is also a psychological novel. It's the main character, Anthony. When he was small, his father left the family. So he grew up without a father. So a child, he grows up without a father, without a hero in his life, because we know that up to age of 12, 13, the father is your hero. So, so when you're 15, 16, when you're a teenager, father is your adversary. So he lost a hero in his life. There was no hero. So after he grew up, he wanted to go and meet his father. He wanted to go into his roots. So he was living in an isolated island called Battalangunduwa in Puttlam district. In fact, I had been to this island when I was the MO mental health focal point in Puttlam district. Very nice island. I think a lot of things have changed by now. So according to the story, the son go and meet the father. So he goes through the, he crosses the sea. So it means in a way that he's going to his origins, going through the amniotic fluid. The sea water is amniotic fluid. And he goes to his father. So now he finds his father with another woman, and now he has a Step's brother called Noah. So Vidivardhana narrates different dynamics between the father, son, stepmother, and stepbrother. So it's about the human drama. So these are it's a very psychological inner conflicts. It's narrated in this Batalangunduwa novel by Manjula Vedivardhan. So these were the specific authors and the books that I wanted to mention. I hope I didn't miss anything. Probably I may have, and you can enlighten me if I have missed anything. So this concludes my presentation. So one more time, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me here. Madam Sajivani, thank you very much. And it's a privilege to be here. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask me, or you can send it through the chat box. Is that okay?
Yeah, yes, one.
Everybody heard me, or only the only few people?
Now, there was this one question by
Yeah, please go ahead. If you want, you can put to the chat box. Sorry, we can't hear you. The line is not very clear. Can you type your question? Madam Sajivani, can you amplify his question?
Puta, some people have not switched off their microphone. Mute your microphone. That's noise. Only the person who asked the question can ask.
Can I make a
this.
comment?
Yeah.
Can I make a comment, Ruan?
Sure.
Pali Psychiatrist.
Oh, sir, how are you? It's
I'm fine. I was listening. I was spellbound from your presentation from the beginning up to now, and it was wonderful, very comprehensive.
Thank
And
you,
you
sir.
went
Thank
through
you.
a variety of, I was just amazed how you collect all this information and put in a very tiny schedule so that it's so interesting, so interesting. And from Homer to up to now to Martin, Vikramasinghe or whatever. And that was a very pleasant experience for me. In a very short period, in a nutshell, it have gone through variety of psychological phenomena among the poets, right? And so I congratulate you, and please keep it going. Okay, thank you so much. That's all I have to say. I have no questions to ask. But I
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. That's Dr.
Okay.
Pali Piris. He's a renowned psychiatrist, and I'm honored by your presence, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or any other ideas? It's okay. I mean, if you want, you can ask in Sinhala. No, it's okay. This is not a language session.
I also want to add something, Dr. Jayatunga. Now, our students are the new entrants to the university, though this should enlighten them to, use the library, read books, although they are not following literature as a major subject. So they all, I think, will be motivated to read because of this. I want to.
Yeah, indeed. Even I didn't do literature as a subject, like up to grade 10, I did Manutapaya and Saddharma Ratnavaliya for grade 10 Sinhala. So that was my literature education. So rest I read it, being a university student, like it's very important to gather information, gather knowledge, read, and listen to other people and discuss things. It's very important because knowledge sharing is highly important because we can't retain everything because we are not like, I mean, our hard disk is very limited. So we can't retain a lot of information, but what we can do is we can read something, we can analyze something, and we can reprocess. So I think that's how the knowledge develops.
Now, even when they now just listen to now how you presented some of these classics like this, they have watched the film. So then like they would be able to just
Yeah.
analyze certain characters. Achilles, for example, they sometimes they might not be familiar with the book, but they have watched the movie. So they
Okay, yeah. So gradually, I mean, it's also certain revelation, like after mentioning about these books and these authors, you might get a certain then the next thing you like to read that book, you like to read that story. So it's okay, children. I mean, you can ask any question or you can text me. It's we are friends. No
Dear
formality.
doctor, could you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm Priyanka Das. I'm
Oh,
Priyanka Das.
Captain Priyanka Das. I'm delighted you are here, sir.
Yes, I wanted to. I want to ask you, I have sent you in a message what psychoanalysis of the author and the dual character could you make out of the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, Mr. Hyde, Robert Louis Stevenson?
Yes. You know what? When the time Robert Louis Stevenson writing his book Treasure Island, he was addicted to cocaine. So he knew that the brain controls the human behavior. So this Jekyll and Hyde, in a way, like the daytime, the day and night, how human psyche changes. One time into a gentleman, one time into a beast. So probably firsthand he experienced that. I think it's not valid to say that whatever the character you see in a novel and you can't sort of superimpose to the author. For instance, you take a character like Piyal in Gamperili, and you can say, this Piyal is Martin Wickramasinghe, or this Jinadas is Martin Wickramasinghe. No, because it has no any ground, or it has no any basis for that. But in certain characters that they create, and there are certain similarities. So with regard to Robert Louis Stevenson and his novels, I think the chemical changes, and that time probably he was experiencing certain brain turbulence. So that's why he probably came with this creative idea, like how the man changes, like all of a sudden the same person, there are two dual personalities. So multiple personality disorder, like it's like a, like Norman Bates syndrome.
Yes, doctor, thank you very much.
Okay, you are welcome, sir.
There is, I particularly asked you this. You happen to be my brother-in-law, and you know my life. So I have this thing like sometimes I'm like Dr. Jekyll, sometimes I'm like Hyde. Why is that?
We all are like that. We all are like Dhaval Miguel Radhanil. That's natural. It's normal to be like that, because that's what Carl Jung said, because we all have masks. Now, I'm wearing a professional mask here because when I go and socialize with my friends, you see a different face of me. And let's say if my neighbor sort of provokes me, you see the different person I am. So that's natural. I think the whole problem is sometimes we try to stick to one character. We try to sort of implant, okay, I'm this sort of professional, and you know, I cannot deviate from that. That's where the stress and anxiety begins. So
Okay, anything about Somavira Senanayaka's Yashodhara?
oh, actually, I have read Somavira, but only thing is, I have not. I couldn't read in depth, but his friend K. Jayatilaka, I have read. Actually, there's a difference between K. Jayatilaka and Martin Wickramasinghe, because Martin Wickramasinghe writes about this Dakunu Palata, you know, all these characters from Dakunu Palata, where K. Jayatilaka writes in, especially in the people in Gampaha district. So more urban areas. So actually, this was told to me by one of the professors, and he said we have to look into that. Why it's like a geographical sort of location.
Anything about T.B. Ilangaratna's book, especially
Mm.
Amba Yahaluwo?
You know, I want to comment on T.B. Ilangaratna's Vilambita, then Tilaka Ha Tilaka. Actually, it's like is a child's, as like from a child to a grown man, how the man's inspirations, psyche, everything changes. It's a marvelous book. But if you read these three,
It's actually 3 books.
yeah, three books. Actually, the book starts in 1930s, before independence. So he was sent to this English school, probably St. Anthony's in Kandy. So after he passed out from his school, he couldn't find a job. So then he applies to various jobs, and eventually he becomes a clerk. So that's where this independence, they gained the independence. It's this is in 40s. So when Tilaka was a young apprentice. So then he goes into politics. Actually, Ilangaratna writes about, it's a semi-autobiography. I think it's a semi-autobiography of Ilangaratna. Great.
And also,
Also his
Amba
Nivedita.
Yahaluwo.
Amba Yahaluwo, actually, let me tell you a joke. This is a LGBT, because, you know, now, so I spent many years in Canada, and we do a lot of like jokes, like there are like various types of jokes and offensive. So it's a form of LGBT joke. Like, so one of my aunties, you know, she was very fond of this Amba Yahaluwo film and the part 2, and she asked that eventually what happened. So I said these two friends, it's Nimala and who is the other guy?
Sunil.
Sunil. I said they got married. She was petrified. So yeah, but
Okay,
actually, yeah,
my
it's-
final comment, with all due respect. You had mentioned about Viraga and living together. Now, I have observed as a law student, Viraga and living together, marriage by cohabitation was the norm historically, before marriage laws came into being.
yeah. It's in
Legally
Canadian law,
recognized and yes.
Yeah, before
legally recognized
yeah, it's
even
a
today.
colonial, before the colonial era, it was the norm. But here Wickramasinghe, because from that era to Wickramasinghe's period, the times and things have changed, and it was a very revolutionary thing. Like, it was a very provocative thing. Like, if you tell something like that, if you bring that sort of concept. So in a way, he was a revolutionary, like bringing, like living together concept in his one of his novels, like, you know, like it's a so in today it's nothing in today parameters, but during that time it's a sort of a very like a I think it's a very feministic psychology you find there.
Acha, Dr. Dhanyawad, thank you very much. We'll have
Okay,
that
sir.
again.
Thank you very much, Captain.
I enjoyed it.
You're
I'll
most
be
welcome. My
taking on
pleasure.
listening to other people's questions also.
Okay, okay.
Okay, bye.
Ruan, I was just thinking of another two authors. One is Dr. Spittle, who has, written
Oh,
this
yeah.
about, and the other one is this British man who was a prisoner and wrote about a lot of things about Sri Vikram Raj Singh era and what's his name?
This guy was not Leonard Wood.
Doyle.
No, not Doyle.
That's famous one.
Actually,
Who wrote?
A Sri Lankan?
no,
No,
he's
he's
a
a British.
British. He's a British who
He's
lived.
British.
He
Who is
lived.
He
Who is
wrote
the
about
prisoner here?
Sri Vikram Raj Singh.
Yeah, he wrote.
Yeah.
He.
There was the customs of Sri Lanka still on those days, and many about the Sinhalese people there, how they enjoy, what their customs about alcoholism and so forth. What he's a famous guy. Now I just come to my mind.
He actually comes in this. He acts in as a judge. He was a civil servant. He
Correct.
acts as a
Correct.
judge in this film. I can't remember which the film is. A singular film. So this guy, I'll give you the name in a while.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, you
actually, yes,
continue.
yeah.
I will think about the name. It's just at my tip of my tongue.
So any other questions, gentlemen and ladies?
Hi, Ruan.
Hey,
Can you hear me?
Manoj, how are you? How are you, sir?
Hi. Thank you for the great lecture. But I was thinking now, since a lot of young students are here, if you can briefly elaborate the methodology that you followed in, collecting all these valuable information. That is what the students should realize. How you actually collate all these symptoms and then came on to a conclusion, and a little bit of methodology that you use. So that will be beneficial for these young people as well. So I was thinking of, inviting you to come up with a small suggestion, because this is a great piece of work. Coming into conclusion, reading hundreds of books and going through, conversations, symptoms and all that. And finally, coming to a kind of a final diagnosis. All these are very important stuff. So if you can, briefly summarize that process, it will be really nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Manoj. Dr. Manoj, actually, he's one of my gurus. Like I learned addiction medicine from Dr. Manoj. And thank you for that. And I am always grateful. So yes, because once you, especially when you do psychology, psychiatry, or social psychology or literature, first you read the character, and also then naturally, we have that when you do psychology or psychiatry, like you go through this DSM symptomatology, and you can see certain the pathological changes in the character. So there is no such thing like what's normal, what's normal or abnormal, because Professor Eysenck said the only difference is statistical, the difference between normal and abnormal. But in the today's in our context, like we have to sort of distinguish which is normal or which is pathological. Now, for instance, when I was reading this Karunasena Jayalat's novel, Gulu Hadawata, I found a lot of addiction-related information there, because long years ago I read the novel, but it just passed through like a teenager reading a love story.
Robert Knox.
And then after some years, after receiving some education, after reading the addiction dynamics, I think Dr. Manoj, you would understand this. And when you analyze that character, you see a lot of addiction-related dynamics are there, because especially his childhood, his isolation, and it's a maternal and paternal deprivation, how it affected him. So he, actually inside, there was an inner child in Sugat who was craving for love, craving for attention, craving for care. So he saw that girl, what's her name? Dammi, not only a girlfriend, in a sort of a maternal figure. So he lost that when she denied him, when she sort of didn't want to continue their friendship. So he was devastated. So that's where he lost his mother for the second time. So these are a lot of addiction related elements are there. So
Right.
this is a perfect sort of a recipe to an addict, like to sort of soothe himself, because the main concept of addiction is the person doesn't live in the present moment. He wants to evade the present moment. That's why he wants to bound himself to a chemical or to any behavior. Either you become a workaholic, you do compulsive, compulsively you seek sex, or you become a gambler, or then you do drugs, or you do alcohol. So you find these elements, and it's a self-destructive behavior in Sugat. Very elegantly, Karunasena Jayalalitha writes about that. So this is how this very simple methodology, like reading and comparing, then reading, comparing, and then sort of expanding your horizons, discussing with professionals, then putting your ideas, and also getting input from others. So this is how I think we have to gather knowledge and to present it to the peers. I think our students should do that. I think they are really good. I think better than our era. Actually, we didn't have much tools. Like when we were doing medicine, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have any other these internet or anything. So those days, I mean, we had, it was a very crude way. Like we learned, like it's the instructor or the teacher and the book and yourself. That's all. And damn bloody exams. So now the picture has changed. Like you have a lot of tools. Like you can Google. You can still dispute your teachers. You can dispute your lecturers. You can find current knowledge. So knowledge is everywhere, but we lack wisdom. That's the problem. I think it's a
Dr.
form of.
One small question by me. Now, in this novel, All Men and the Sea by Hemingway, now if we take Santiago's character, now it's an extremely positive one, because he dreams of lions and wants to think of the good times in the past. And, you know, although like he's kind of a loser in the present, so the way that he kind of like keep himself positive is like extraordinary, isn't it? Like now when we analyze Santiago's character now, what is how can we like?
Yeah, ma'am, there's a lot of internal power in that character, even though he's physically not very strong. He has a strong mind, a strong determination, never gives up. That's why Hemingway says you can kill the person, but you can't destroy him. So that inner spirit is there. That's the in Santiago is sort of the human spirit. And that Merlin, that fish, is nature, that eternal struggle with nature. And it could be your destiny. Because every time we are fighting with ourselves, we are fighting with others, we are fighting with our destiny. So, but the struggle never ends. And those who give up, they are the failures. So, I mean, in this battle, you can get killed, but they can never defeat you. So,
Thank you.
so this is the message I think he wants to give, because he was very fond of bullfighting. So that's a very alpha male thing.
Yes.
And Hemingway, so he saw this masculine power, human power, because he saw the man's insatiable desire to go to war and to kill, to destroy, the stand against, fight against, even fight for some reason, give your life for some reason, because that's one of the reasons that a lot of volunteers went to Spain to save the democratic government from Franco. So a lot of people died, and actually it's, so probably we could say that it's a very insane thing. You are living in a different country, you have all the comforts, and all of a sudden you denounce everything and go to a battlefield and fighting for someone else, and eventually you get killed. And eventually you are buried in a sort of an unmarked grave. So what is life? I mean, is that the life? Life is like to enjoy like an Epicurean. So these are the things that Hemingway asked, he is asking from the readers.
Thank you very much.
And also,
let me-
and probably you have read this Herman Melville's Moby Dick. So there are hundreds of interpretations. These the great big fish. Some say that and Captain Ahab. So this is a confrontation between good and bad, good and evil. It's about the fighting between Christianity and the old world. It's there are hundreds of interpretations. Everything is fully open, and there will be more and more interpretations will come into in the future.
Doctor, I think the gentleman who asked about the Britisher is, I think he's talking about Robert Knox.
Robert Knox.
Yes.
Dr. Pires, were you referring to Robert Knox? I think no. Robert Knox was there during the Rajasingha the second's period, not Sri Vikrama Rajasingha, because
Yeah. Anyway, he wrote a book about Sri Lanka.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
So
Since
there
was-
he mentions about the Sri Lankan customs, even
Yes.
ancient,
Student shared the answer, John Doyle, like he, yes. I don't know whether it's for the same question.
could be John Doyle, because he's
He
some
was
say he
also
was a
like
British.
made
Some
scholars
say
and-
that he
yes.
was a British spy. Some say that he's
Yes.
the one who introduced alcohol to Sri Vikrama Rajasingha. But you see a lot of empathy and a lot of likeness in his writing to the islanders. So indeed, as a like a government agent, a representative from the British government, they had their own interests. But I don't think he was. He had a sort of a very destructive mind, like the Portuguese, like the Portuguese generals, like Azevedo.
Could I say something? Robert Knox was virtually a virtual Christendom by the Rajasingha. And this Doyle came as a civil servant and started below, and he was instrumental in getting this 1815 Givisuba.
Yes.
Doyle was behind that, and
Yeah.
actually Doyle was like Lawrence of Arabia.
Yes.
He was working for the both sides, and he was a brilliant officer. I don't know, maybe he was an intelligence officer. He was one of the good intake guys, because he went. He learned the language.
Yes.
So he went to the lowest levels and associated all sorts of people. So he came to know a lot about the society. He came to know a lot how the general opinion, general psyche, how it works. So then he advised the English to exploit that.
Yes, because of
So
him,
that's
they
obvious.
succeeded in now getting this kingdom, like,
Yeah, yeah.
because of his kind of nature, shrewd and very,
He was actually a power.
yeah.
Yeah,
He
there
was a-
actually there was a very power struggle between everybody, even Ahelepola.
Srivikalau.
Yes,
Srivikalau,
even
Ahelepola.
Ahelepola, he invited British. Eventually, he wanted to be the king. He it's like Mao Zedong method. Like you first you join with your enemy, like Chiang Kai-shek. Then you fight your enemy. Then third, you get rid of your first enemy. It's something like that. He was practicing, but something went wrong, and he lost his family, and eventually he died as a prisoner.
See, since you have been speaking, you are very knowledgeable in, holistic things. So why don't we speak about the Ramayana?
Oh my God! That's the least thing I would ever like to read, because this is because there's a sort of history, Ramayana hysteria in Sri Lanka, and I think if I start talking about Ramayana, I'll get assaulted. But recently, I went to Nuwara, and I saw that they are building that Sita Kovil, and it's a very good thing. Like you have to
No,
advertise
that is
these concepts.
no. I'm talking about, sorry, not Ramayana, Mahabharata.
Mahabharata. Yeah,
Yes,
actually, no, yeah. So this Mahabharata, also a great epic. They discuss about the combat trauma. So we don't know actually who wrote it, and there are a lot of historical interpretations. There could be several authors, but they describe this Mahabharata. Actually, it's a great epic, and it's also narrates about battle trauma and all the battle stresses. I think it's similar to Trojan War. It's Iliad, especially the Iliad.
Yes, yeah. Ekollo Samakalin.
Could be. Maybe, it's like today, like, this is where I don't know whether there are followers here of Professor Nalin Silva, because I respect him. I met him 6 months ago. He's a great man. But I was not very, how should I put this word? I want to sanitize my words. Like I don't make a distinction between the Western knowledge and the Eastern knowledge, because knowledge came from everywhere. First from Babylonia, then to Egypt, then to Greece, then to Rome, then to Arabia, to India, everywhere. They actually we can talk about Western dominance, but there is no such a thing called Western knowledge.
What is great about
So that's why,
Mahabharata?
because I had a very friendly argument with him, but it's very hard to convince professor. But so
What is
just
great about
I mentioned my opinion. That's all.
what is great about Mahabharata is like our Dharmapada. The second chapter of Mahabharata is Bhagavad Gita, which is the Bible for the Hindus. It has not yet been, it has supposed to have been spoken to Arjuna by Lord Vishnu, but nobody has still come up with the right interpretation. I have some books which different people give different interpretations. That is the most important thing in Mahabharata, is the second chapter.
Yeah, but I have very superficially read about that. I think in the future I should do more reading about that, and then we can make good interpretations about that.
Yeah, in English it is there in Sanskrit bookshop.
Okay, Captain Dias.
Okay, thank you.
So what about our students? Are you there, or are you sleeping? So Madam Sajivani,
Yeah, one student just put this not on doily, Dr. Jayatung.
you can send the question to Madam Sajivani. So you can then you can filter the question.
Yes.
Is he sending the question?
Not actually a question about John Doyley, like in the chat box.
Okay.
Okay. So that means they are motivated. So that's it. Like, but we want from a session like that, they have time, 4 years, like there's good library, time, everything available. So they will.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
From a different angle when they read. Thanks to you. Yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Adrais, I will leave you with this thing that Dr. P.S.N. Ratvidana taught us in class. He said some of the parts of our Navam, what you call our old history book is being omitted. What actually we speak, Madasodagat Kada Govia Rajaki was actually a backhanded compliment, right? Because this guy's father died in Sri Lanka, and the king didn't move his finger to help bury the father. The what do you call, the Govias around came and they dug the grave and they buried him, and then he said he was pissed off with this Raja Singh. So he said, Mother Sodagat Kasa Govihara Rajaki Rajavi.
I think you should read some of the recent writings of Professor, I'm forgetting his name, Professor Sekara. Professor Obisekara. Gananath Obisekara from Princeton. Yeah. Actually, he does a lot of writings in depth. So yeah, should read about his new interpretations about the King Raja Singh.
Not Mahavansha.
Mahavansha,
has been quite sanitized, the version that we see. So some things are omitted. Dr. P.S.N. has told us. He said he has the original, but he won't give it to him. The guy died.
Okay. So, Madam Sajivani, any other? If there are no questions, is it high time now?
Okay, Dr. Jayatunga, thank you very much once again. On behalf of everyone.
It's my pleasure, and thank you very much for your participation. And Dr. Pires, Dr. Manoj Fernando, Captain Diaz, everybody. And it's a great honor to be here. And we'll try to meet again.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank
you very much. Thank you.
You're right.